We left all the revs.
Right,
the revs are all on their own. They're all on their own right now.
Core rev is welcome to World vs. World tier. Core rev strip spam is B tier. I mean, I don't know if that's true. Core rev is to Herald as Core Ellie is, or Core Guardian is to Dragonhunter or Weaver, right? But it's definitely way worse.
We can give them a pity C tier. We can give them a C tier just to let the core rev enjoyers have something.
I can top arc DPS strips by 150% on core rev to anything. That's
wow.
Correct. Garfried is the best.
Garfried is a big core rev fan. Yeah. Actually, I didn't know this. I'm learning about him today.
Hex, dude.
Like, there's only one thing Garfried loves more than beetle racing, and that's core rev.
It's core rev.
You know what? Yeah. Do you know what this is? This is actually a callback meme, Roy, because in one of my old tier lists, I accidentally deleted core rev. It just wasn't even. I just removed it. I mean, I'm
gonna be honest. If ArenaNet deleted core rev, I don't think anyone would notice.
That's true. So, you know, there was someone was
except for Garfried. Except for Garfried. Garfried would be sitting here like making forum posts. Like, why did you take away?
Where did core rev go? Put it back. I'm putting core necro and didn't buy X-Packs as well. Okay.
I mean, that makes sense.
Yeah, because you're playing core. You don't have the X-Packs.
I mean, to be fair, all the core classes should be there except for core rev to just spite Garfried. But yeah. Yeah, I think this is probably good.
I'm helping you out with this.
A little bit less balanced than.
Give me 1 sec, okay? I've got a plan for this, okay? I've made a new tier. That should do it. I think that will help. Okay, there it is. All right, let's fucking go. Right, it's tier list time, Roy. Right, I'm leaving here because I'm not gonna AFK leech. Let's go, Roy. Tier list enabled. Right, let's do this.
You're abusing me for content.
Yes,
and I get nothing from.
I mean, I think you get gratified. I think you like it. I think you enjoy it.
I don't know about that one. What's up, Teapot? How's it going?
It's going good. It's going very well. Got some tier list memes here.
Yeah.
Ready to go. World vs. World. I don't know anything about World vs. World, so I'm just gonna make you do everything. That's the only reason you're here.
What prompted this tier list extravaganza?
People like them. I think it's fun. I enjoy it. Do people love it? People love tier lists. Okay,
is this going on the YouTube?
Oh yeah, it's going. Yeah, we're going on YouTube, Roy. Oh
nice. Yeah. Anyways, hope all is well. Remember to shout twitter.com/MMOinks if you want to follow Teapot on Twitter.
Yep.
Yeah.
Stay connected, right?
All right, cool.
You got to stay connected. Yeah, we got to do like a tier list, so we can really milk the content, right? We got to squeeze it.
Welcome to World vs. World tier.
Yeah.
So SABC and welcome to World vs. World tier.
Yeah. I think I'm just gonna put. An S tier is just immovable object.
Yeah. Okay, that works. Welcome to World
because it amuses me. Yeah, welcome to World vs. World tier immovable object. So immovable object is the stuff that's just been around forever, probably never going anywhere either. And then welcome to World vs. World. It's the builds that people who join World vs. World, bright-eyed, bushy-tailed, they're like, oh, I want to play my main. Yeah. Then it turns out does nothing.
Yeah, that makes sense. I like that. Now, all right. So before we dive into this, a couple things I'll say. I actually think that almost the last couple years have actually been pretty diverse for World vs. World in terms of how many classes are being played. And I also think that with ArenaNet's new balance philosophy, we're going to see things come into the meta and fall out of the meta a bit more. Or at least I think there'll be less disparity between classes. Like we already had, 2 balance patches, right, since EOD? I could be wrong with that, but I think
that's correct. And there's another one coming. There's actually some more changes coming on the 19th, in fact, I believe. So this tier list is
I thought it was May 10th.
Oh, yeah, May 10th, yeah. So this tier list, I have to do it again after that. We have to milk it even harder. Yeah.
Oh, darn, we got to keep doing tier lists.
Got to keep doing it. Yeah, got to keep going around.
And then, of course, we'll have the big patch in June and potentially even more patches in between. So, you know, I think things do shift. But anyways, so obviously since POF, Firebrand was S tier. I would say Firebrand probably still is S tier. But like Firebrand was like the S tier class for a really long time. Since POF. You could also probably at the beginning of POF, I would have put Scourge there. I would not put Scourge there anymore, but I definitely would have put Scourge in S tier probably for the first couple years of POF.
It was pretty busted. It was pretty broken.
Yeah. By the way, we're doing this for like large scale world versus world? Like
yeah,
50,
this is
what?
kind of large scale. Okay. You know, just the
okay.
It's aimed at the majority of world versus world gameplay, which is typically going to be two relatively large groups crashing into each other. Then we can mention stuff like if it works really well in 15v15, right? That kind of slightly smaller scale stuff. I think roaming, I'd want to do it separately, right? Like roaming is another entirely
irrelevant.
Beast,
no
right?
one cares about roaming, so yeah, you're right.
Whoa, whoa. But yeah, this is the kind of like, you know, big zergs, and we can say, okay, it works really well in GvD. You know, stuff like, for example, you know, like Thief, I feel like deserves a bit of an honorable mention, right? Because although, will you see it being run in like giant zergs? Probably not. But I think Thief, you know, you will see it played in the small scale fights, you know, like 15s and so on, and you know has a key role there too in GvGs and stuff.
Right. Listen to you people in chat doing the gasp emote at me feels weird, man. Okay, listen, man. I'll have you know, I am a roaming enjoyer. Okay.
Yeah.
Me and 6 of my best friends got on EB the other day, and we ran around and roamed. Okay. And you know how much roaming content we had? We killed a bunch of solo players and then died to like 20 players, multiple times. All right. So that's how. Yeah, roaming is fucking sick. Anyways, all right, so yeah, so Firebrand is S tier still. It definitely has fallen off a little bit. I think that its healing has gotten reduced quite a bit. It used to kind of be the best at everything in terms of like support. The only thing that you wouldn't be taking Firebrand for was damage, but there even were some viable DPS builds for Firebrand, specifically like Burn Guard, which you don't really see very often. It's more of a niche build or more of a niche playstyle, but it definitely was very strong. It might even still be not bad, but it's probably fallen off a bit as well. But with recent nerfs to its healing, it doesn't really have as good healing anymore. It still has good healing, but it's not as considerable. But it still has the monopoly on group both stability and more specifically stun breaks. And that's what really sets Firebrand apart from all of the other Guardian specs. DH is never really going to be very viable as a support. It hasn't really ever been viable as a support, and it probably won't have an option to be. But both Core Guardian and Willbender actually have some pretty viable support builds. The only issue is that they just don't have the stun breaks that Firebrand has. The Elite Mantra,
very powerful, It's an uncommon effect.
What keeps it
not
above.
many things can do that, right? You know, not many abilities break stun on allies, and that is an incredibly powerful thing. Because it means that if someone gets trapped, right, then you can allow them to get out of a really tough situation, right? Because you know, if you get stunned and you fall behind the pack in world versus world, quite bad, right? Can be potentially disastrous, and that's why being able to break out of some of that, like either by removing an immobilize or breaking someone out of a stun, very important. So would you say? I mean, Scourge A tier, right? It's definitely still up there. It's still blasting. One thing you're going to see in every Zerg. A tier, surely A tier. Can't have fallen below A tier.
I would say. It's so okay. So here's the thing with Necro. I think Necro builds somewhat are okay. So Scourge is definitely, it feels more viable at larger scales than the other Necro builds, but I also think it depends a little bit on playstyle. I think Reaper is better than Scourge at small scale, but also has potential to be competitive with Scourge at higher.
It just requires a big playstyle shift, right? Like everyone has to kind of get on board with it.
Yeah. If you're a really organized group, and I will say this, I think this is harder to pull off, not just because most groups don't do it, but also because I think it's a bit harder to play melee than range.
Yeah.
But if you as an organized group have everyone go Reaper and you try to just melee push a lot more, I think it can be more effective than Scourge. That being said, Scourge is definitely, I would say, a little bit of an easier playstyle. I think playing not like trying to commit to melee pushes as much is also easier. I think you're going to see it less likely. Scourge still has some of the best AoE pressure in the game. Shades are like completely neutered at this point, but they it's still going to be some pressure. It's still 900 range strips that you can get. Has good fear on it, and then barrier is just extremely strong.
I think the thing about Scourge is that it sustains itself really well too with boons, because it steals those boons with feed from corruption, which is like that's a big upside, because it means that if you remove someone's stability, you have stability, right? And it means that you're going to almost be guaranteed to have really high uptimes of basically all the boons, because everyone's spamming them like crazy in world versus world, and you just yoink them, right? Which is a very powerful thing to have. And it means that you can be surprisingly independent, right? That's why I always go on Scourge as leech Zergs, because it means I can just like spam my stuff and who needs support? I am my own support.
Breach is also very, very strong. So is the stun break that I'm forgetting the name of.
The Trail of Anguish, yeah, because it has infinite targets, right?
Yeah.
So you can mega corrupt people with that
exactly.
too.
It has no target cap. So if you're using it offensively, you can just pump strips out, which is insane. And yeah, so again, at the beginning of POF, Scourge was hard S tier. It was unstoppable. You ran, well, for small scale, you ran like 6 out of 15. For large scale, you were running like, just a million of them. It was completely broken. But then nerf after nerf after nerf to it definitely moved it down. But yeah, it's still definitely very strong. Reaper is a little harder because, again, I personally think it's A tier. I would probably go so far as to say it's almost S tier in small scale.
Oh wow.
Maybe not 100%, but I think it probably is because it's necessary. But obviously we're not really talking about small scale. So for large scale, I would probably put it again at A tier just because I think, again, if you play around it, I think it's as viable, or can be as viable as Scourge. But again, it's a harder play style. Reaper F tier. It's not best, so it's worse. Yeah.
Yeah. Trash. Utter garbage.
Yeah.
So there is actually potential there for the Reaper. The Scourge is kind of what people are used to. It's a little bit easier. And yeah, I think in particular, there's a Reaper. I think it works out really well because of Rise, I believe, right? Like the little minions that summon all the little things. I think
yes and no. Rise definitely is it's a strong skill. It probably is a little bit too strong for what it is. But Reaper has a lot going for it besides Rise.
Massive damage.
It has a ton of. I mean, again, it's a little bit dependent on playstyle. Like if you're never going to play melee, you're not going to want to run Reaper because you're not going to have the same amount of pressure as you would on Scourge, which you can just drop shades at 900 range. With Reaper, you have to be in melee range to get value out of its shroud. But it also, the modifiers on the Reaper trait line, and then also the build you currently run on Reaper, which was, I think, the build that you would run. It was a little bit more niche in small scale, but there was some guilds were running Reaper with Bloodbank, and Bloodbank is a very strong skill. And you're probably not running Blood on Scourge. At least, I could be wrong. I don't think you run Blood on Scourge. But so you're not running that build, and it's extremely good at keeping Necros alive when they're being single targeted. It's a very, very strong build that you generally, and it just syncs up better with Reaper. So I don't think it's just Rise. I think Rise is slightly bloated, but I don't think it's only Rise. I think Rise is more of a factor that affects gameplay than necessarily the comp in a way. And I know that sounds kind of weird, but I think you wouldn't necessarily drop Reaper if and when Rise gets nerfed, which it should. It should absolutely get nerfed, but I don't think that guarantees you drop Reaper. I don't think Rise is the only thing keeping Reaper in.
Okay.
Because you see some guilds playing Reaper without Rise, and
it works.
I just think, at least in small scale, I think it has benefits to that Scourge does not. But yeah, in large scale, it's definitely harder to say it's better than Scourge. I don't think it is. I think it can be competitive with Scourge, but again, it depends on your playstyle. Core Necro, I would probably put B tier. I think Core Necro is really good. I think it can be really good, but I think it just doesn't have that like oomph, that extra bit that Reaper or Scourge have. You're just generally not going to see someone play Core Necro over Reaper or Scourge. I think it's solid. I think it's a good class, but it doesn't. It's very niche. It can potentially outstrip both of the other Necro specs, but you're just not really going to see it played over one of the others. And I think if you're not going to run Reaper in large scale, you're not going to run Core Necro over Scourge. That being said, I don't think it's a bad spec. I think it still has some pretty good parts to it. But yeah,
it's got wells. It has corrupts. How bad can it be? How bad can it be?
Exactly.
To be honest,
that's the thing. It can be very good. You could get away with running all Core Necro. You're just not going to if you have POF on your class.
It's a pretty nice. It's got the unnerfed Path of Corruption, right? So you have the unblockable projectile, which is really nice, obviously for World versus World. You get that AOE corruption on that, and just all the normal Necro goodness as well. But as you say, a little bit stripped down compared to the other two, right? The other two have a little bit more to offer in terms of Necromancer. Let's throw some specs in the trash, Roy. What's going in Welcome to World versus World tier? Like what's going in the dumpster? Like where?
Okay.
Here we go.
Well, we can put all of the thief builds except for Daredevil in there. Actually, I mean, I don't. All the thief builds except for Daredevil can go in the trash.
Yeah, not Spectre. Sure. Not Spectre.
I haven't seen anyone make it viable. I've seen people trying it. I have not. Okay, you could maybe put it in C tier, but I just don't. I don't know. I haven't seen anyone make it viable. And it's also just Thief is just so disadvantaged at larger scale in general. Like, yeah, it's not. Yeah, this is Zerg. Yeah, we're not talking about small scale, and we're not talking about roaming. If we're talking about roaming, then yes, we probably have to put Thief.
Then you have to put Thief tier. Thief gets a tier of its own, I think, at that point.
Yeah, I know Sin really wants to make Spectre viable.
Yeah, he was trying
in
it, I think.
World. And it obviously has more potential.
He swapped to Daredevil,
more things will have more potential, yeah, in small scale. But even in small scale, I don't think Spectre is going to outperform other things. I don't think it's F tier. I don't think it's Welcome to Worldless World tier in small scale. But for large scale, I would probably still put it there. You could put it C tier if you want.
I'm doing it. I like Spectre. I'm a Spectre enjoyer,
Maybe you land the Gravwell and you like kill someone with
I'm just saying, look.
Maybe you full heal someone with the shroud or whatever. Yeah.
In the same way that I'm getting all the ad revenue from this video, I'm also getting all the YouTube comments. And if I put all Thief specs in Welcome to World vs. World tier, the Thief mains will descend on me and they'll bully me.
Okay.
And I can't handle that, actually.
First of all,
it's too much.
Thief mains have never had good opinions or takes, and B, are generally always just salty about anything. It doesn't. You could put them all in S tier and they'd still find something to complain about. It's just Thief mains. Now, Daredevil, I would probably put... It's harder to say. I think it could be B tier, but I also think it's probably C tier, because I just think that Daredevil just can't get in... Like, it just can't be good in large-scale fights, for the most part. I think you have some potential to, like, be okay with it, but for the most part, it's just you can't run it in large-scale combat. It is hard S tier in small scale. Daredevil is hard S tier in small scale, which is why it also bumps it up a little bit. But yeah.
So where would you put it overall then? Because yeah, you do have the key things about the Daredevil is that will always remove stability, right? It has massive area damage with the staff too, which is great for cleaving people out and generating kills. And you have that because Thief is a very special boon, guys. Like you may not know about this. There's a trait called Bountiful Theft, which means you remove boons when you steal, and it always removes stability, right? So no matter how many boons the target has, it will always remove stab. Okay, and if you play Daredevil, it happens to be unblockable as well. So even if someone's using a block skill, for example, it will go directly through that. Nothing can stop this ability, which makes it just absolutely incredible for eviscerating targets, right? And just, taking someone, focusing them, and annihilating them, which is obviously a key part of the small scale, more organized, coordinated world versus world experience. But yeah, Thief's definitely a really hard one. For the exact reason you described, because it does fall off, right, pretty heavily into the larger scale stuff. You can you can obviously still deliver value. I think you could pick people off, right, who are weak, right, and if people get caught, you can take them out and stuff, I guess. But you probably wouldn't run an entire Zerg of Daredevils. Wouldn't work very well.
Yeah, it's gonna be similar to a lot of other builds that rely on, again, melee combat, because in large scale it is just simply harder to be in melee than not. And so Daredevil, DPS warrior, ranger builds, we could DPS NG builds that aren't relying on nade pressure, which are going to usually get cucked by projectile block. If Guardian didn't have range pressure, things like that are generally going to fall off in large scale because you just can't. You can't be in melee for as long. So,
should we give it the S tier because of how? Should we give it the S tier because of how powerful it is in the GvG, or does it get like kind of the average, right, between C and like? Yeah. Does it get like B tier?
Because it has the B because.
Okay. What? Let's make some more people angry. Yeah. What else are we throwing in the trash?
Okay.
Core classes. What about core Mesmer?
Okay. Yeah. Well. Yeah. Core Mesmer.
It has illusion. I mean, how bad can it be?
It has Moa, it has Null Field, it has Mass Invis, it has illusion. Like, I'm not gonna lie. Technically, you could play Core Mesmer instead of Chrono.
But why would you do that?
You probably wouldn't. But yeah, I don't think it's hard trash because yeah, it has illusion, and that alone will make it not hard trash. So I would probably put it in C tier because it's not really going to be played. But I think it wouldn't be fair to call it hard trash. You could put. Well, I don't know.
I've made a new tier. I've made a new tier.
Viable because of Illusion of Life?
Okay.
Oh.
We have a brand new tier, Roy. C tier and D tier.
Call it the IOL tier. You can just call it the IOL tier, to be honest.
Yeah, okay, right, okay. D tier is now Illusion of Life tier. There you go. Enjoy. And base measures going in. There it is. You know what? Let's... What do you think about Virtuoso? There's gotta be potential.
I would put all the Mesmer specs instead of... besides Chrono in that tier.
There's got to be some potential, though. Surely, Roy, with the Illusion of Life. No,
yeah,
I mean with like... No, not Illusion. I mean with like the Blade songs. The unblockable trait, dude. Come on. Unblockable Boon Rip. 1200 range. Wow.
Yeah, but you're just never going to run it when Chrono exists. Like, here's the thing with the Mesmer classes. You're just not going to put any of them in any comp ever when Chrono exists. Like Mirage actually had, I think, a lot of potential when they gave it alacrity, but it's just not consistent enough, and it's not better alacrity than the other classes. So yeah, I would keep all the Mesmer classes there. I would probably put Mirage. No, I don't know. I mean, I would probably put Mirage, then Core Mesmer, then Virtuoso. I think if you want to order it like that, just because like technically you can get alacrity out of Mirage. But yeah, I just don't think it's. I don't think it's...
Do you think there's any hope for Virtuoso? Because to me, it seems like one of the things that could work well. You know, there's got to be something there. Because this is one of my big disappointments with EOD, was that a lot of the specs kind of don't really work that well in World versus World. They don't have a crazy amount of design that works here, which I find very disappointing, actually. Yeah. You know, because alliances are coming up, right? You know, it's been a long time coming, so this is the World versus World expansion, but unfortunately, it's not to be.
Yeah, I think one of the other reasons that Mesmers in general suffer is because a lot of what they need rely on clones, right? And
Virtuoso doesn't, right?
And
it doesn't.
Clones just hard die in World vs. World. But yeah, right. But still, I think even with Unblockable, it just isn't enough. And I think you can't, like someone said in chat, you just can't get the
you can't connect
enough. Yeah, it's just not. What do you do as a Mirage when a commander yells double dodge? That's a good one.
You have to use Distort as well, so you have that going for you. You have a little bit.
The other thing is, I think one of the things that's cool about Mesmer is a lot of its elites, a lot of its core skills are very good.
Yeah.
It has very, very strong core skills, and to be honest, I think any Mesmer build could potentially have some niche viability.
No field portal, veil, illusion, right? All this stuff. It's just always going to be good because it's a bit like Guardian in a way, right? With Stand Your Ground and some of the other key stability applications, or Necro too, right?
Chrono does it all better.
Good skills. Where would you put Chrono? Would Chrono S tier?
I would put Chrono.
Would you put it in a movable object?
I would put it A tier.
Really?
Oh, right. Yeah, we have an S tier.
Yeah, there is S tier. Yeah. Better than Scourge.
Right, I forgot that. Yeah.
Better than Necro.
I'm gonna say yeah. I think yes. Ooh. I think it is better than Scourge. I think Gravity Well, Focus Pull, in some cases Veil, and the amount of strips you can do on Mesmer make it
huge.
S tier.
Yeah, because that downstate management
illusion is just.
Yeah, that ability is on another level, right? You know, it's downstate management is really important in all areas of World vs. World, really, and it's a very good skill at doing that. And you can spam it really fucking hard, right?
Yeah. Now, someone raises a good point. You're not going to stack it, right? And that's obviously fair. But the thing is, it doesn't really matter.
I don't think that matters. No.
With small scale, Daredevil was S tier because of how strong it is. But you're
not on one. You're on like 1 or 2, right? I think.
Yeah. You could run 2, but you're pretty much never going to. But it doesn't matter. It's still S tier.
Of course.
And yeah, it's not about the number of the classes you run because I don't know. Yeah, just because if I run a Necro in every single party, that doesn't necessarily automatically make it S tier. It just means that it's required. But yeah, I honestly think Chrono is S tier. I think it's been S tier for a really long time because of the unique abilities it brings, which is a little bit unfortunate. But I will say as well, I think Chrono has started to have a little bit more viability outside of just being an illusion bot because. It has other utilities that you bring now, and again, I think now that people are running it more for strips and stuff, it can actually be top strips, which is really interesting to see, and at least in smaller scale. Not 100% sure about large scale if it will be top strips, but it has a very strong amount of strips there. With
I have heard that people are starting to stack a few of them, or use a lot more Chronomancers, even in larger scale play. Actually, that's my understanding.
Yeah.
Anyway, it is there. There's a lot going on. Then turns out that having loads of good abilities and removing boons and getting your cooldowns back really quickly, it's pretty good. Gravwell, pretty good. Focus Pull, one of the best abilities in the game. Honestly, in like every game mode, it's pretty good. It's pretty good stuff.
Focus Pull is very, very strong, and it is it's the main setup for range spikes, right? So, yeah.
I want to smush some more builds there, Roy. Like, what about Ranger? Okay. Can we shit on the Rangers? Like, core Ranger. Surely Core Ranger is welcome to World versus World tier. I want to put more things in welcome to World versus World tier.
I would put Core Ranger in there. I would like to put other Ranger builds in there, but I think that Druid can have, like, fringe viability. It probably isn't going to, but, like, again, it's one of those things where it's, like, it's niche.
I think
there are, like, some niche aspects of it where I would probably put it in C tier. And, like, it actually is I think it's pretty close to being really viable. It has very, very good healing. It just doesn't have a lot of, like, great cleansing outside of Glyph.
Yeah.
And... yeah, I think you could honestly put all the Ranger builds.
I'd be very tempted. I've already done it because like stuff like Soulbeast and Untamed, you can really blast people with it, right? Even in a large zerg, would you want to stack a bunch of Soulbeasts? No, you wouldn't want to stack a bunch of Soulbeasts. But you do have. I mean, if you're a roamer in the chat, any roamers in the chat, guys, you probably faced a Sick'em Soulbeast. It's not that much fun. Right, to go up against that. It's quite a lot of damage in a very short period of time. And you can absolutely eviscerate people who get kind of caught behind the Zerg, right? A little bit. They fall behind. So honestly, having like a Soulbeast in your large-scale group, I think that can actually deliver some really solid value, I would say. And obviously, Ranger has a lot of powerful stuff like Immobilize. I think, Druid and Soulbeast in particular use a lot for this in smaller scale stuff too. Would you actually promote Soulbeast higher because of this? Because I believe a lot of guilds in GvG, at least historically, have actually used Soulbeast for immobilized spam, actually. Yeah, in some of these things, would you give it a little bit more, like a B tier?
Soulbeast is at least A tier in small scale.
Oh, A tier? Oh my god.
But I don't... The thing is, so Garfried is raising a decent point. You don't really run Rangers. Like, no one runs Rangers in large scale. Not loads of them. I think they have niche viability, but you just never see them. Now, does that mean they should be lower because of that? Like, if you never run a class, is it automatically F tier, even if it has viability? I don't know. I don't make tier lists. So...
you do now!
If you think that never running it... I know you're talking about Druid, Garfried. If you think that never running it makes it F tier, even if it has viability, then yeah, you could put Druid in F tier, because no one runs it ever. But, again, I think it has fringe viability. It's just, again, it's very niche. You're not really going to ever see it, because most people just aren't going to waste their time with it. But yeah, like you can hard entangle people, and you can get some good burst healing out for like a second before you die to other conditions that you can't cleanse.
And your pet's dead as well.
But yeah, and your pet's dead, and that's why Soulbeast is better, right? Because it doesn't need a pet. And that's sort of why Untamed can kind of work. But yeah, I would keep Soulbeast. I would never put Soulbeast higher than B tier because I just don't think you run it in large scale ever.
Yeah. What about Untamed?
I'm more inclined to put it at C tier, but again, if you want to like average it out with
I'm giving it the B tier. I think it's holding hands with Daredevil right now. Okay, that's what it's doing.
Okay,
I'll put it at the how about the bottom of B tier? I'm giving it the bottom of B tier.
I would be. I think well, you'd have to put you have to put Daredevil ahead of it. Because I think Daredevil is S tier in small scale, and I don't think Soulbeast is. But yeah.
What about Untamed?
Right. Anyways,
how are you feeling about Untamed? Does that do anything?
I think
a weird
Untamed
spec.
is the same as Druid.
Yeah.
Where I think it like has some viable options, but it's just you're not gonna ever see anyone run it. Yeah. Yeah, Ranger's not best, so it's trash.
It's trash.
Garbage. Oh
Horrible.
Oh my god, dude.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of anger here, right? I can see there's some rage being discussed. We've got through a lot of these classes. We've got a lot of these good ones. And what about? Let's see. We didn't do Harbinger. What about Harbinger? Because I'm a big Harbinger doubter. But a lot of people are like, dude, Harbinger's amazing. It's so good.
Yeah.
It blasts. But is it just me, right? I don't see it. I don't. I'd say it's like the worst out of the Necro specs, right?
The Shroud skills, like their modifiers, got nerfed. I think there was a chance you could make it viable. in certain, maybe in smaller scale, but now I just don't think it does enough damage to basically balance the fact that it dies so easily. Like, it's a glass cannon and glass cannon builds just are very hard to make viable in World versus World. I would put it on. I think I'd put it in Welcome to World versus World.
Wait, you go that far? Oh wow.
Yeah. The other issue with it
projectiles,
is you
right?
need, yeah, and its elixirs get projectile blocked.
Yep. Ugh.
So, and that is very bad. Anything that relies on projectiles in any way is
tough.
Unfortunately,
that's a tough
going
sell
in the dumpster. Yeah.
Unless they're unblockable.
Yeah. Look, yeah, you can survive on Harbinger. Like, it's not 100% glass cannon. Like, it's not like if you get looked at, you're gonna die immediately. Like, it has such a high health pool. There's a lot of good trait modifiers you can take in Blood Magic, Death Magic, or a combination. But I just don't think it's ever going to outperform other DPS builds in that regard. It's, like, it could have, again, before it got nerfed, I think it could have. But now I don't think it can. And, again, because you're relying on elixirs and they get projectile blocked, I don't think it's, I just don't think it's going to. So I would probably, I think it's in Welcome to World tier.
Oh my goodness. You know who there's another group of players that like to complain a lot, and that's Ellie mains, Roy. Let's do Ellie. Okay, let's do Ellie.
Okay, so Tempest is probably A tier. I think you could maybe argue for it being S tier in GvG, but I don't think it is in large scale. But I think it's still probably A tier for large scale. And then for large scale, Weaver is S tier. For small scale,
massive damage.
It's trash tier for small scale. But yeah, it's probably. Oh, okay. I actually don't know if I'd put it in S, to be fair, because
there's some indecision.
I don't think Weaver. Yeah, it's harder to tell because here's the thing. I think when you have a really strong Weaver player,
it looks better than it is.
It
can pop off.
But the other thing is, it's not really a requirement. Like, you can play without Weavers. I think if it's an S tier, you can't really play without it, and I think you can play without Weavers. I would probably put it in A tier because of that. Just because, like, I think Weaver is really, really strong. I think it has a lot of potential to generally be top DPS in large scale, but I think it can be not as safe as Herald and DH or even Core Guardian. And because of that, it's a little bit harder to keep viable. It's a little harder to run sometimes. And again, you just don't need them. They're really, really good damage at range. Probably the best damage at range. But again, because they're squishier than other range classes, they fall off a bit with that. But yeah. Shouldn't Necro be higher by default? I mean, the thing is, I mean, yeah, you could put Scourge in S tier,
the indecision is happening.
You could put Scourge in S tier if you wanted, but again, it's like, I don't know. That's why I don't know if Weaver should be S tier or not, because I think it's really strong, but I don't think it's necessary. I think Necro is necessary, but it also doesn't have.
Scourge has been promoted. I'm a Scourge simp. S tier.
Yeah, but the thing is, I just don't think Scourge should be S tier, man. Like,
wow,
it's just not
demoted.
As it used to be.
Okay, but I mean, you're going to see it in every Zerg. I think a lot of people would consider World vs. World unplayable without Scourge.
Yeah, you're not gonna comp properly without a Necro spec to comp around.
You're gonna need at least some Necros, a little bit of Necro.
Yes.
But yeah, Weaver, it's one of those, you don't see it. You don't see it all the time, but it is definitely underestimated. I think in general, Elementalist tends to get a bit underrated. Across all the gamers, actually. You kind of see it in PvP as well. Like, people are really high on the Core Guardian Copium right now. But Tempest actually really good too, as well, if you want to play Tempest. Not so much in PvE. Tempest kind of got wrecked. But yeah, Weaver, definitely really strong. It is this, like, massive artillery thing. If you can land those meteor showers, it's not going to go well for the enemy team, you know? It's going to be very painful.
Yeah.
You can definitely, like, hard carry a fight. Like, if you see a Weaver really just connect in a Zerg, you can actually decimate a Zerg. It's like some core game stuff. Do you remember, like, the classic videos of, like, the 3v50? Like, playing core Ellies in the core game when there was no target cap? You just use Ice Bow and Meteor Shower just to one-shot everyone? It's like that with Weaver. That's Weaver now, pretty much. Does a lot of damage.
Yeah. Again, I get the argument for like, Necro going up a tier because it's sort of necessary. But even like, okay, let me try to explain myself. I think if you're not necessary, you shouldn't be S tier like Weaver. But if you are necessary, it doesn't necessarily make you S tier because, for instance, like, well, actually, I don't know if there's a really good example for this. Warrior, I would probably say is necessary, but I think at large scale it's not S tier, right? I don't think there's an S tier warrior build at large scale, and so it's necessary because you can't not run winds even in large scale. Well, there's probably ways to run around it, especially now that winds got nerfed. But I still think it's such a strong skill you don't want to run without it. But I would not put warrior in S tier in for large scale, right? And so like that's the best example I can come up with. That I think I would put Spellbreaker in A tier. Honestly, maybe even B tier, but I still wouldn't not run Spellbreaker. You know what I mean?
It definitely struggles it definitely struggles in the larger scale stuff after the nerfs.
Yeah.
Because before you just needed it. You needed to have those wins, right? You had no choice. Because it just means you can't get any boons. If you get immobilized inside that or stunned inside a bubble, you're dead. You're fucked. Nothing you can do about that. You know, it is over for you.
No, it's Josh is right. It's not B tier for sure. I will say Spellbreaker, DPS Spellbreaker, in small scale, is potentially a movable object.
Oh,
definitely
wow.
S tier.
Wow.
Definitely S tier.
It's I mean that's pretty big then. So I mean maybe it gets A tier overall then because it does have a little bit of fallout.
No, it's definitely A tier.
Better than Ellie? Better than Ellie or worse than Ellie? Middle of A tier?
Yeah, I would probably put it middle. Yeah.
Middle of A tier. There we go. It's done.
Yeah, I'd probably put it middle.
It's in the mix.
Now the rest of the warrior builds. So Berserker, a lot of people would probably. Oh, okay, sure, we can go Bladesworn. Bladesworn at small scale, I actually think has niche viability. Wait, please explain to them how Wind's nerf was a warrior buff. People don't understand. Oh, okay. So, when Winds got nerfed, it made it so that warriors... So, okay, if you are a DPS player, a DPS warrior, and I touched upon this earlier, you aren't going to be doing damage when you're not in melee, right? Because you're a DPS warrior. You're not running anything that does range damage.
So you got more push potential,
if you
right?
If you can't push in because there's a Winds there, you're not doing damage. But now that Winds is nerfed, you
get
have
more value.
More potential to... melee uptime increases. It's also just easier to not die in melee pushes. Therefore, classes that would
can be a little
greedier,
melee pushes, right? You're a little greedier.
Yeah.
A little greedier.
And also because DPS warrior didn't get any of its damage from the skill Winds. So nerfing Winds even though you still run it,
you still have loads of damage. Yeah. I think that there was oh man.
Yeah.
What was the guild that ran this in the GvG tournament? They were running like 1 million warriors, right?
Beam?
Didn't they run Beam. They ran like 4 DPS.
They ran 5.
It was like 5 warriors. Obviously, there was a limit on how many wins you could run in that tournament. You could only run 3.
Yeah, it was 3 wins limit. I think they ran
and it was
support warriors.
It looked terrifying.
DPS, but
it looked horrifying.
They ran banners.
Yeah, it was a lot of damage.
And here's the other thing about warrior. Even if wins falls off 100%, I think banner is still really, really good. I don't know if you'd run warrior in large scale. You might still run berserker. You might even still run. You might run Bladesworn, like support Bladesworn. I think has a lot of potential to be run, but I think you're not going to run Bladesworn in large scale over Spellbreaker right now. But if Winds like completely fell off, Banner is very good.
It's a really interesting skill. Being able to finish people off is great because obviously if you can, getting people in the downstate is one thing, but Banner is a really interesting skill because it's very two-sided, right? You have this revival capacity, which is obviously great, but you can also finish off enemies at the same time and just completely kill them. So if they're trying to be revived, right, or signated or something like that, you could just boom, annihilate him in one shot. So there's definitely some options for warrior, right?
This is a good comment in chat. I have a problem with Scourge being 90% of lead calls are Scourge spells. Where versus World is a Scourge mode. So I think that's a valid comment because a lot of commanders will play around Necro cooldowns. The reason for that is because you want all of your Necro's cooldowns to be synced up. The rest of your players don't necessarily need all of their cooldowns as synced up as Necro cooldowns. So you want all of your wells. If you're running shades and you're spiking around shades, you want all of your shades synced up. Same with your breaches because they're way more effective when you sync them up. But that being said, I would still rate a lot of other classes higher than Necro because I think they do more right now.
Yeah, we're talking this. We're measuring power level here. This is about how strong it is, not how essential it is. It's how powerful it is.
Well, not even that. You just play around Necro cooldowns because it's the easiest and most efficient thing to play around. And so that's why a lot of calls are around Necro cooldowns. It's not because they are the most important class or the best class. And I'm not saying they're not, but again, that's not the reason that you play around the cooldowns. It's because that's just the best way to play and lead open field generally. So, you know, if you're hearing a lot of Necro calls, it's because those are the easiest cooldowns to sync your group up around. And like, well spikes have basically been the basis for all world versus world groups since the beginning of time. And so there you go.
Yeah.
Anyways, I would put, okay, so we still have Core Ellie. I would put Core Ellie at B tier.
Just because it has damage. It has some potential, right? It just does something. It has something.
I think it basically, if you were gonna say I want to play DPS Ellie in a large scale, but I don't have POF, Core Ellie's viable.
Yeah, you would definitely play Core Ellie.
Weaver's always going to be better, and other DPS classes are always going to be better.
It just got
it's
more.
Definitely not
right?
dog.
Yeah, it's like it's just a Weaver that's not quite as good. Not quite. Well,
exactly.
Maybe a significantly.
Core Ellie is a nerfed Weaver.
Yeah,
exactly.
for sure.
So I would put it there. Catalyst, I think. Catalyst is a little harder because I think it hasn't been tested as much. I think I'm not really as familiar with the class myself. I think it only has viability at small scale right now, though. I don't know if you're going to see people running it at large scale. But I also don't think it's like completely useless. Like, I think it has some viability. I would probably still keep it at C tier, though. I don't think it's welcome to World versus World. Catalyst performs the same as Weaver. I mean, look, maybe I don't know if that's true or not. I don't think it is, but in large scale, you know, I
think it can perform well. I mean, you have double. You can double up with the elite skill.
I'm really not familiar with Catalyst at all. It's
have a huge spike.
Hard for me to say.
You have stuff like a mass double meteor shower, right? With the elite skill reset, you can like double up on lava font and stuff like that. So you have a massive amount of burst damage. That's for sure. A little bit less flexibility, perhaps, than the Weaver. And I think the Weaver will be able to keep blasting for like a bit more consistent damage there for sure. The Catalyst, it has a lot of stats as well. Like the amount of like peak damage it can get with the extra stats means it does a huge amount of damage with all that stuff. But I think you are right there. It's definitely a bit up in the air. For sure.
I don't know. I just feel like I don't see groups running it in large scale, and I've played with it in small scale, and it seems like it's good, but it also, like, I'm not 100% sold on it over other builds. In smaller scale, I would never put it low. I think it's probably mid-tier for small scale. But again, for large scale, I'm just unfamiliar with it, and I haven't seen groups playing it. I'm more than happy to accept that it could be good.
We need some Hammer
Catalyst. I just haven't really seen it, but yeah.
We need Hammer Catalyst. That's the real good build. Let's go.
Yeah. And the other thing is, I probably would run other LA builds over it, right? Like, if someone was like, you want me to play Catalyst or Core Ellie or Weaver, I would say Core Ellie or Weaver. Like, you know, but you could put Catalyst B tier. Like, I don't have a problem with that. Again, I'm really not very familiar with the class. Like, just straight up, to be honest, I'm just not very familiar with the class. So, I would, you know, it would be a little harder. But I'm, you know, if you want to put it in B tier, fine. That's fine.
I think that's where it belongs. That's where it belongs for now. But there's a question mark there. The chat is pointing out some good things. It has a colossal spike, right? Using the fire augment for more damage. If you get charged up with auras, you get another 20% extra stats because it doubles at 10%. I mean, that's ridiculous. And then you double meteor shower, but then get fucking annihilated, eviscerated. I almost feel being a little harsh.
Better too. That would really help Catalyst. Like, I think if Hammer was stronger, it would be better. Roy Hard selling Copium. I mean, it's more like Catalyst mains are selling Copium to me, to be honest.
They're winning me over. I'm reading the chat, Roy. They're selling me on it. I'm hearing about it.
All right. Immovable Object Catalyst. Let's
go. Let's fucking go. It's there. I'm rating it above Firebrand. It's there.
Yeah. Easy, dude. Firebrand sucks.
Yeah, Firebrand, so terrible, see, like, this is horrible spec.
What I love about Guild Wars too, man. Like, I say I don't think Catalyst is very good. Everyone in chat goes, no, it's good. And someone comes in and goes,
okay,
dog.
This is the Ellie main paradox. I have said that, Tempest is really good. Yeah, it's really great in raids, guys, play it. And then the Ellie mains say, dog shit, it's unplayable. How can you say this to what you don't know what you're talking about? Then I go, Tempest has a few issues that prevent it from seeing very high play rates, and I even defend it when it got nerfed. I said, hey, you know, Tempest needs a little bit of help. The Elemains say, nope, Tempest is fine, actually. It was fine the entire time. You don't know what you're talking about. You can't win. You honestly can't win with the Ellie mains.
Yeah,
okay?
I was going after the Thief mains before, and I have to apologize to the Thief mains. I'm sorry. Ellie mains are definitely way worse.
You know, I don't know. Yeah, the other thing with Catalyst is that you can get access to your skills a bit quicker too, because you can just instantly swap, right? But I guess you can't swap back as well. You can't swap as frequently, right? You can't use the same level of ability flow. I think it's definitely a really interesting one to think about, though, for sure. Like what could end up, could Catalyst end up being good? I think definitely. I think Arik made a really good point here as well, that if Tempest is around, there'll be way more aura spam, and that means it will have more stacks, which will also inherently synergize with it if you had a lot more Tempests.
This is what I said like at the beginning, right? Is that I think builds and classes are a lot closer now than they were before.
Oh yeah.
And especially with more consistent balance, it's a lot easier to see that. And I think there's a lot more arguments for things to be viable, especially if you're considering like niche fringe builds. And that's why like I think people are probably like, oh no, you should be rating a lot of these lower. Because like I genuinely think there's a lot of builds that A, just aren't getting tested, and B, haven't really found their way in yet. Because even though EOD came out over a month ago, I still don't think that's enough time to really figure out exactly what is viable and what isn't. I think you still have, and I also think there's a lot of groups that just like don't test stuff as much. Like, the amount of like people and groups that like really hard theory craft things and like test stuff out, like, maybe they're not doing it in the same scenario that like we're talking about here. Like, obviously like my perspective, like I play a lot more small scale. I test a lot more things small scale. So like larger scale, I'm not as familiar with, right? And so, I don't know as many groups that are testing stuff in large scale, especially because when you talk about large scale, when you talk about 50v50, you're talking about generally unorganized pug blobs, right? Because that's just what it is.
Which makes it harder to tell what's actually working, right? Yeah, what's actually going well.
And so, like, I think it's harder for me, I just don't want to rate things as low because I genuinely think there's a lot of things that just haven't been tested and that, aren't as clear if they're bad or not. That being said, there's definitely some things that are just like you're not going to run ever. You're never going to see them run in large scale.
Like Mechanist.
Like Mechanist. Yeah, Mechanist I think is probably in the garbage.
I put it there. I enjoyed doing it too.
Which is funny because like I think it actually could be really good, but I think the way it's designed right now, it's never going to be. Yeah.
It's going to have some
Mechanist
problems
is definitely down there. I would be inclined to put Core NG there as well. Because I feel like you're never going to run Core NG over Scrapper or Holosmith in any scenario.
Core NG is definitely one of those specs that it feels like really fell behind. Some of the core specs are a bit more caught up. I think you'd look at something like Core Necromancer, Core Guardian, even Core Thief in PvP, right? They're a bit closer together, but Core NG is like, it's the one core spec that's like, ooh, it doesn't really have that much going for it, does it really? And they're trying to do that. Like, Core Ranger as well in PvP, I guess, and all that kind of stuff.
Nades could be good, but again, projectile hate, right? Pull NG can pull and mow the commander. Oh, that's true.
Big. That is true. Yeah. But you play Scrapper.
All of the other...
Because you want
actually, no, I guess it's the only one that can...
you do the mower, right? Yeah, the F5 mower, yeah.
Scrapper is definitely... probably a movable object.
Oh yeah, it has to
be. Should be
I think it's not going anywhere. Right? It got nerfed, but it's still there. It single-handedly removed conditions from World vs. World. It cleansed the entire game mode.
Yeah, If we were making a mechanic, tier list, you would put condition in a movable object, except for Scrapper being a thing, and then it goes into the Welcome to World vs. World tier.
Yeah, but, deletes.
Holosmith, I would probably put in
B tier. Would you say? Or C tier.
It's either B or C because again, you really almost never see any.
I think it has to be C tier actually. I don't think it's.
Yeah, it probably is C tier. The thing is, like, you can actually hard pump on Holosmith. If you run the overheat trait, and you like play it properly, you can hard
detonate
pump
on people. Yeah,
but like, you're just not going to run it. Like, I think it's like Druid, right? Where I think there's potential for it to be good. The thing is, the reason that I would actually rate it almost lower than Druid is because I think it needs buffs to be better. I think Druid just needs changes, and there's a difference there. And maybe Holo could use some changes too. But the other thing with Holo is like, it's 100% reliant on melee, which makes it more viable now. But I think all the other melee builds became more viable than Holo. But yeah, I would probably keep it there. I think it could almost be B. I would probably put it at the front of C tier. I also think Holo, like in small scale, it's I wouldn't call it viable either. I'd probably keep it in B tier because in small scale, I think again it has a ton of potential to be good, but you're just going to run other stuff instead of it.
Yeah. Needs a bit more. Needs a little bit more.
I honestly I don't like putting it in C tier because I actually really like Holo. I actually think it could be really good, but yeah, I just don't think you. Yeah,
what do you think it's lacking? What does it need? What's that extra something that it needs? Because it has lots of damage right now, right? But
it probably just can't survive. It's kind of similar to Harbinger, where I actually think it might even be harder to survive on Holo than Harbinger, which I know sounds like a meme because it has Elixir S, it has blocks, it has stealth, it has all this crap, but it definitely feels like it's hard to live on. When you're just hard pumping DPS, especially because you have to be on top of the enemy group so much for hard DPS, or to pump your DPS, and so
you're in the you're in the firing line. You're in the danger zone.
You're just not going to, like, with Engineer, all your damage is melee because all of your range damage, which is good, is blocked by projectiles.
And you're completely destroyed. You are shut down. Yeah. Or even worse, reflected. Then you kill yourself.
Yeah.
In a video game.
It also, someone else, I mean, if Holo had more stability, it's kind of a similar, like, PvP issue.
If the Corona, right?
It would probably be better too, right?
Yeah. They can never give that trait back, though, because that trait destroyed PvP. Sorry, World vs. World fans. That's never coming back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, so now we have the heavy classes to finish out that we haven't done.
We're dodging them. We're actually dodging them, dude. Hard dodge here.
Let's finish out Warrior first. So, I think Berserker's... I want to put Berserker in B tier. I think a lot of people would probably rate it a bit higher, but I think a lot of what Berserker does is just padding. I
completely agree. I was going to get in there with a controversial thing because I know that a lot of people actually really like it, but to me it just seems like you're just making numbers go up, right? You're making loads of numbers go up, but you're just tickling people, right? Over and over again, right?
Like, I would never rate it higher than any of the actual DPS specs you run. So, any of the LE DPS specs, any of the Guardian DPS specs, any of the Revenant DPS specs, the other Warrior DPS specs. Like,
True.
I think it can be good, and again, it brings Banner, which is really good. But the thing is, like, it doesn't do anything else. It brings Banner, and it brings a lot of meter pad, and that's it. And so, yeah, I would keep it as B for sure.
And it's kind of important to kind of understand the dynamic of World vs. World. I think looking at Berserker explains that. A lot of it is about spike damage and being able to do your damage all at the same time really, really quickly. It's like slowly tickling people down. It's not super, super great. I guess like the Greatsword, like if you're running Greatsword and stuff, then you're really going crazy, I guess. You're going to have some massive damage
but that's like, if you're going to run like melee DPS Berserker, so Hammer Greatsword, I think I think Spellbreaker's better. Like I think a full melee DPS Spellbreaker build is just better than Berserker, and I think the reason that Berserker's viable with Longbow is because it can recharge as F1, and because it's F1 on Berserker is better, right? It's not a projectile; it's that big field. But I don't think, like, again, I think the damage you'll see on Berserker Hammer Greatsword is going to be padding compared to what Spellbreaker's DPS is, which is like actually good DPS. And I think Spellbreaker Hammer Greatsword DPS is better than Berserker.
Yeah.
So I would keep it there.
Core
Warrior is it
welcome?
I want to put it. I
feel like it's welcome.
Welcome to World vs. World tier, but the thing is, Banner's just so good. But like, I think you have to put it in Welcome.
It has to go there because
you're just never gonna. You're never gonna run it.
If you can do all of that on the other specs, right? What does base Warrior deliver? It delivers nothing.
Nothing. Absolutely
nothing.
Bladesworn.
EOD. Could this be?
So
the highest EOD spec right now is B tier. Can it defeat B tier? Can it break free from B tier?
No, it definitely can't. It's either B or C because I think in small scale I would put it in A. I actually would probably put it in A in small scale. Although I don't know if I would still call it meta, but I think I would put it in A tier for small scale. But for large scale right now, I think Winds is still strong enough that that Spellbreaker as a support build keeps it ahead of Bladesworn. I think if you never ran Winds, no matter what, Bladesworn as a support could be better than Spellbreaker, but right now it's not. And it's not going to out DPS any other warrior build except maybe Core Warrior. I'm not really sure, but maybe, but probably not. It has one of the most broken skills in the game. So similar to how we were talking about Trail of Anguish having no target cap, guess what? Warrior has a skill that doesn't have a target cap, and it immobilizes people.
Nice.
Which is degenerate.
That is pretty good.
Extremely degenerate.
Yeah, I like it.
But I would still probably put it in C tier. It's not B tier. I would probably put it in C tier. I don't want to put it in Welcome to World vs. World because I genuinely think you could run it as a support build, and it wouldn't be bad. but I think you're just going to run support Spellbreaker over it because of wins. That being said, Banner's really good. Banner is really good. If you land support Bladesworn,
we should just put them in Illusion of Life tier. Put Core and Bladesworn in Illusion of Life tier.
You could. Well, no, I would not put Core there. Core's dog shit. I would put Bladesworn in Illusion of Life tier. That's fine. Yeah.
We've done it.
Trail of Anguish is not capped. No.
There it is. Mesmers can't even have their own tier, right? Like Warrior has now started to interfere with the Mesmer tier. Yeah. Wow.
But Chrono's still S tier, all right? So Mesmer mains can be happy about that. Yeah. Okay, so we'll finish out Guardian. So Core Guardian and DH. Okay, well DH is
would you put it
either S or A?
Yeah. It is definitely one of those core DPS specs that you are gonna see pretty much.
Dragonhunter.
Dragonhunter. Yeah.
Core is gonna be in A, I think.
Yeah, because it's a bit kind of superseded by Dragonhunter in some respect. I think.
Right. Yeah. If your choice is between DH and Core Guardian, you're gonna run DH because of traps. But Core Guardian is still very strong DPS. I think, I would keep it A tier. I think it's viable, and I think it's a decent DPS. Plus, you can bring stability on it, which is always really good.
Yeah,
another
it just has all the Guardian goodness, right? That Guardian juice, that Guardian goodness.
The reason I'm not 100% sure if Dragonhunter should be S or A is not because I think if you run a lot of Dragonhunters, you can win off of traps, and I also think it's S tier. Actually, you know what? No, it's definitely A tier because I don't know if I would call it S tier in small scale either. So I would definitely put it A tier. Yeah.
The game's looking a bit quite balanced. It's looking too balanced right now.
We can change that. Don't worry. But
we just gotta
Dragonhunter there. And believe it or not, I think I would put Willbender in B tier. Unfortunately, we're just not breaking any EUD specs out of B, but I think
B tier is as far as they go. They get cock blocked. Yeah. Any higher than that, they're just trapped.
And the reason I put it in B tier and not lower is because it can give permanent alacrity, which is there's just no way a build that gives permanent alacrity and stability can be lower than B tier. There's no way.
Mm-hmm.
The thing is, so I actually would probably rate Willbender as a support in at least A, if not S tier, if Firebrand didn't exist. If Firebrand didn't exist,
for sure.
I think Willbender is
don't have
almost
space.
S tier.
You've got no space for it, right?
Because it just automatically moves up. I think it becomes the meta support, the meta Guardian support. If Firebrand, let's say they deleted Elite Mantra tomorrow. That being said, tomes are still really, really strong, so it's a little bit harder, and Firebrand just has good modifiers on the trait line, but I think permanent alacrity. I'm just gonna keep saying permanent alacrity is nuts. It's so nuts, and it's Can you give another time the definition of S tier? It's not 100%. Okay, so a movable object is literally just the best specs in the game, no matter what.
Mm-hmm.
S tier would be just right below that, and I don't think anything is S tier besides Chrono, because I think Chrono's really, really good, but it's not on the level of Firebrand or Scrapper, because the class as a whole of Firebrand and Scrapper are just completely broken. Chrono has a few skills that are completely broken.
The S tier, once again, is just what's the power level, right? How good are the abilities? How game-changing are the abilities? And how irreplaceable is it as well? Is there anything else that could maybe rise to that, kind of do the same thing there? And it's a little bit difficult to deal with Chrono. Chrono is unique, right? Mesmers, you got something special there, right? Mesmer in general has a lot of abilities that are unusual, right? And difficult to come by.
We'll revisit Scourge once we place the Revenants. I'm not 100% sure.
We left all the Revs. The Revs are all on their own. They're all on their own right now.
Core Rev is welcome to World vs. World tier. Herald is
A tier, right? A tier? High A tier.
Oh, it's definitely A tier.
Or S tier. Could it be? Because there's a lot of range damage. Right now in the metagame, it's very heavily range damage oriented, right?
I think Herald is the best DPS spec in large scale play.
It's a very complete package, right? All the boon stuff, right? Good survivability attached to it as well. A lot of damage.
Core Rev strip spam is B tier. I don't know if that's true, but you might be memeing. I don't know. I've literally never seen anyone play Core Rev, so I actually have no idea. I just assume it's welcome to World vs. World tier. I think Herald's S tier. I think Herald is S tier because
Chalice, Glint, you got super speed as well. Massive damage on a short cooldown.
Dragon stance, Chalice stance are just so good. Hammer is just so good. Its modifiers on all of its trait lines are just so good. Yeah, I think it has to be S tier. Okay, look, yeah, you could run Core Rev. It's kind of the same. Okay, so like, Core Rev is to Herald as Core Ellie is, or Core Guardian is to Dragonhunter or Weaver, right? But it's definitely way worse.
We can give them a pity C tier. We can give them a C tier just to let the Core Rev enjoyers have something. They can have C tier.
Yeah, you could
top
give
of
it a
C.
C
They could have top of C tier maybe. Just let it in there.
I would put it under Hollow, but sure.
It's under Hollow. It's beneath Hollow.
Renegade is B tier. Small scale, it's probably S tier, but for large scale, I think it's B tier because I think you're generally not gonna run it over. Well, you're never gonna run it over Herald. They do different things though. That's why it's a little harder to say. But I don't think it's good enough to be A tier in large scale because I think most people aren't gonna rely on it for alacrity in large scale, and they're just gonna run Herald. I can top arc DPS strips by 150% on Core Rev to anything. That's wow. Garfried is the best.
Garfried is a big Core Rev fan. Yeah. Actually, I didn't know this. Yeah. I'm learning about him today. With Kex, dude. Like, there's only one thing Garfried loves more than Beetle Racing, and that's Core Rev.
It's Core Rev.
You know what? Yeah. Do you know what this is? This is actually a callback meme, Roy, because in one of my old tier lists, I accidentally deleted Core Rev. It just wasn't even. I just removed it. I mean, I'm
gonna be honest. If ArenaNet deleted Core Rev, I don't think anyone would notice.
That's true. So, you know, there was someone was
except for Garfried. Garfried would be sitting here like making forum posts. Like, why did you take away?
Where did Core Rev go? Put it back. Yeah, and he's just come to avenge
our final class, our final
Vindicator.
Vindicator. So in small scale, I think Vindicator is pretty viable as support. It's probably A tier, but I think it falls off really hard in small scale, and I think because of the one dodge, it's way harder to run.
Yeah, your dodge is a lot of your power, right? Yeah, and you know, not being able to move in the same way as other people is definitely annoying, right?
Rev kind of keep placements are pure copium? I don't think so. I think Renegade is really good. It's just you don't run them in large scale, but I think it's really good. So I think B is fine, and again, it's S tier in small scale. I mean, Core Rev is whatever. I don't really care about Core Rev. Herald is 100% S tier, so I don't think they're copium at all. Vindicator would either be B or C.
Do you not think it's good if you can actually get into melee, though? The greatsword is like, it does a lot of damage.
It does, but I think DH and Spellbreaker and Core Guardian and Herald out DPS it, and potentially even some Ranger builds. But, yeah, you could probably put it in B tier, because I think it's A tier in small scale, and I think it could be viable. Herald is just better than Vindicator though as DPS. Like Herald is just better. In melee range, Vindicator competes with DH, Weaver, Herald, DPS in large scale. Yeah,
but a lot of damage. If you can connect it, it's really fucking hard. I played it actually. It's one of the specs I played in World vs. World. It's a lot of fun to play, actually. I like the Greatsword. I like Eternity's Requiem, Roy. It's a good fucking skill, dude.
Yeah. I think the Glint stance keeps Herald above Vindicator, though. And I think that, yeah, I mean, I don't know. Yeah, I would put it at least B tier.
Give it an A tier. You know, we could be generous. Give it a little A tier.
That would be generous, for sure.
It would be generous. I think that, you know, but look, maybe Ender Dragons deserves it. Maybe they deserve some generosity.
Do they?
Well, look, do Red Mains ever complain about stuff?
No, Red Mains are pretty chill. I like Red Mains. I am a Rev Main, so, well, in PvP,
they don't complain that much, right? I don't have any trouble from the Rev Mains.
Is it really better than Renegade, though? Yeah, I mean, that's a good... Well, the thing is, they do... It's hard to say. Renegade is just a weird spec, because I think what is so good about Renegade falls off in larger scale. I think what is really good about Renegade shines in small scale. And I think, again, in small scale, I think Renegade is S tier because of how strong it is. But I think in larger scale, it just, what is really good about it falls off a bit. Yeah, sorry, I'm a Rev main. Core Rev
imagine not knowing about Core Rev Stripper, dude. Like, how could you call yourself a Rev
literally
main?
No one in the extent of World vs. World has ever run it, ever, okay? You probably, like, dreamed that you ran it once, bro. I'm sorry.
I'm trying to find it. I don't know. When is it? I can't find the build. I'm trying to find the build. Doesn't exist.
I'm not mad about putting Vindicator in A tier. I'd be fine if you put it in A tier.
Let's put it in low A tier.
But I would it would be the last class I would put in A tier.
I'm low A tier. I think they deserve it. I think the Rev mains have earned this.
One of the issues with it too is that it just has so many bugs, right? Like,
that is true.
Its bugs are just
it's very buggy.
It's a really buggy spec.
Yeah, that is
it's
true.
Like you just die on it. Yeah. Anyways, okay, so I know a lot of people were saying Scourge should be S tier, so we can discuss this. You swap Renegade and Vindicator.
I think there's a very good argument for Scourge being S tier because I think there's a very strong in large scale because it does scale really well, and the way it performs, particularly in I think when we're talking about large scale, you mentioned this earlier that it is going to be kind of disorganized. I think Scourge really shines in disorganized groups, not gonna lie. Because of the self-buffing it has from Feed from Corruption, it allows it to function when it's a bit scuffed. It's quite durable because of all the barrier. You get damage reduction as well. Then there's a very strong... I think we may have been a little harsh on A tier. Maybe Scourge bottom of S tier, maybe? Because it is definitely one of those ultra-core classes.
I think it's fine. The only reason that I rated it a little bit lower to start was because I think people kind of put Scourge on this pedestal when it's... Like, I think the other Necro specs are a lot closer to it.
Yeah.
And again, like we were talking about before, it depends a little bit on how you play. But yeah, I think it's fine to put it in S tier. Because you're probably going to run it over the other Necro specs anyways. So yeah, it's fine.
It is good. It's just so versatile. It brings a lot to the table. You got cleanses, you got barrier,
right? Clouding class.
Yeah. It is very good for that too. It's got your boon rip, right? You've got everything attached to it. It's an all-in-one, right? You even have a little bit of stability. It's good. It's crazy.
Yeah.
I think I've given it a promotion. I think that's
fine.
I think that's probably about it. You know you know what? This tier list actually looks a lot better than I was expecting. You know, like it's funny. I think things are getting a lot better. You mentioned this earlier with World of Sword. I'm really excited to see what they do on May 10th and June 28th too, right? Because there's a lot of
Vindicator and Renegade. People are very upset about the Vindicator Renegade placements apparently.
Yeah, it's a hot topic here, right?
Here's the thing. Again, let me say this. I think Renegade is S tier in small scale.
Yep. Maybe it goes to A tier.
But again, you never play it. Like, you don't play it in large scale. You just don't play it in large scale. Because you're not using Malix in large scale effectively compared to small scale. You're not relying for it on strips in small scale. In large scale. And anything else that it brings besides Alacrity is going to be run by
Herald.
Herald, right? Like, yeah, it has Joust, but so does Herald, and Herald's just gonna out DPS it.
Yeah.
And
it's got to be the comparative memes, right? Like, you have to have this comparison, right? It's not, you can't just say, oh yeah, this build's really, really good. It's like, how good is it compared to the thing that you'd be running instead of it, right? If that makes any sense, guys. Yeah. So you've got to think about that. You can't just go, oh, this build's really good. It's like, well, if you run this build, you aren't running something else. It's what Roy said about Firebrand, right? And Willbender, this interaction there, is that Willbender is really good. You've got loads of really high value abilities there. Some great support attached to it as well. You have the Alacrity uptime too, which is something that's quite rare. You don't see that very often in competitive game modes, actually. Alacrity is quite hard to come by. Particularly area Alacrity is quite hard to come by. But the problem is, if you're running a Willbender, you're not running a Firebrand, right? And if you're not running a Firebrand, you're giving up Elite Mantra, you're giving up all your tomes, right? And this like really powerful package that's difficult to really replace that. And, you know, it's funny, actually. If you end up seeing stuff like Firebrand getting nerfed a little bit, and maybe other classes that do stuff, I don't know, like Soulbeast getting buffed up a little bit, and other support classes that can kind of fill some of the roles of the Firebrand so you can swap things around a bit, then I think you really start to see a lot more diversity in the way people play the metagame. But there are just a few things that are a little bit too high value right now, and a lot of the alternatives don't quite deliver the same amount of value, and there's nothing that you can kind of stick them together with. There aren't enough puzzle pieces, right, to stick together right now, and combinations don't quite work, you know? But in the future, that could definitely happen. There are strong builds out there. The reason things get rated a little bit lower here, guys, is because you just can't really fit them into your playstyle currently. Like, it's not just about the power level, it's about how does it actually work? How are you going to end up running this, right?
Listen, Mental, I agree with you. Renegade is better in GvG than Vindicator, but we're not doing a GvG tier list right now. We can do a GvG tier list, I'm happy to. the reason I mention it in small scale is just because I think it's interesting to mention. Is that Power Scourge in S tier? Yeah, none of these builds are Condi. You're never gonna run Condi right now.
Yeah, Condi, it's not looking good.
But we can do a GvG tier list. I'm happy to do that. That'll be really easy, and you'll probably enjoy that one more, Teapot.
Yeah.
If we do a GvG tier list.
Honestly, you know what?
I think this looks pretty solid.
Should we do a little bonus meme? We could do a quick GvG one just to satisfy all of the GvGers in the chat, because everyone's going berserk. Everyone's going berserk.
Yeah.
Maybe I reset this. Maybe we do it. Okay, World vs. World tier list done. You know what, Roy? Let's do it.
Yeah.
Let's leap into it. Okay, this one larger scale tends to be larger scale oriented tier list. Let's do it. Okay, so for the 7 GvGers who aren't being griefed right now, let's get into it. I'm resetting GvG. Okay.
Yeah, you can put. I think you could probably do 3 tiers for this.
Okay.
So
I've made question mark. I've got question mark, question mark, question mark.
A tier, and not played. I think.
Okay.
Is the 3.
I'm gonna do S tier, A tier, and nice try.
Yeah. Okay. Sounds good. All right. Are you ready?
Let's do it.
All right. So for S tier, Scrapper.
Yep.
Firebrand.
Yep.
Renegade.
Uh-huh.
Daredevil.
Yep.
Spellbreaker.
Yep.
Probably Tempest.
It's in.
Chrono.
Uh-huh.
I'm just waiting for the stream to catch up here so I can see. I would put Soulbeast in A tier.
Boom.
I would put Catalyst and Vindicator in A tier.
Okay, it's in.
I would put
DH. Little DH. Little bit of DH memes. A tier.
Yeah, DH.
Bit of A tier gaming. A little bit of A tier. Reaper. Where's Reaper? Where the fuck is Reaper, dude?
So the Necro builds are harder. None of them are going to be picked wrong character. I don't. That's good. I just read that. I don't know if I would put them in S tier though. Well, okay. One of them has to be in S tier.
Reaper?
I don't know.
A little bit of Reaper juice.
I guess you probably have to. Yeah, you probably have to put Reaper in S tier.
Reaper S tier, and then it's gonna Scourge.
And then all of the other ones can be A tier. Yeah.
Yeah.
Even Harbinger, honestly.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's in. They're in.
Yeah. That's fine.
Okay.
Herald could. You could probably put it.
A tier.
I don't think you put. Well, I don't know. You haven't run Herald in GvG in like 5 years, so I don't know.
Pick one
Willbender is
character.
probably A tier. Yeah. Willbender is A tier. Core Guardian is A tier.
Okay.
I think that might be it. Oh, Bladesworn could be A. No, Bladesworn's not A tier.
Okay. No love for the other ranges, the other medium classes.
No, none of them are. No, you're never gonna run them over Soulbeast.
Okay. Is that it?
That might be
it. Is everything going into pick wrong character? Everything else pick wrong character? Please stop your.
Apparently disagrees.
Please stop your losing followers because of Roy. I'm just putting everything else in pick wrong character. It's all going in. I'm doing it, Roy. I'm throwing them all in there.
What did a red say? Harbinger and Core Guardian down a tier and it's done.
They're all in.
You think Core Guardian is picked wrong character? I could see Harbinger being down there. Yeah, you could move Harbinger down to the 3rd tier. Core Guardian.
Yeah, you're a Harbinger sim, dude. Okay, Harbinger is dog. It is actual woof tier. Okay, simple as that. It's done.
You could make an argument for Bladesworn and Herald going up, I think, but you're just not gonna. Honestly, we probably could do one more tier in between A and picked wrong character, which is like fringe viable.
New tier,
but like,
new tier above this is didn't buy the expansions. I think Core Guard can go there. Maybe Herald can go there because you're not a part of the fire.
I don't understand why people think Core Guard and Core Necro are bad. Like, they're quite good. They're just not going to be played over other specs right now.
We've solved it. We've solved this, Roy. There's didn't buy the expansion tier.
I'd put Bladesworn in didn't buy the expansions, even though you did. But you, okay. I don't know, man. But Bladesworn should be up there. Like, Bladesworn genuinely is good. Like, it's just, you know. Yeah, that's probably good. Yeah, that's. I mean, honestly, Berserker could maybe be in there too.
I'm putting Core Necro and didn't buy X-Specs as well. Okay.
I mean, that makes sense.
Yeah, because you're playing Core. You don't have the X-Specs.
I mean, to be fair, all the core classes should be there except for Core Rev to just fight Garfried. But yeah. I think this is probably good.
I'm helping you out with this. A
little bit less balanced than.
Give me 1 sec, okay? I've got a plan for this, okay? I've made a new tier. That should do it. I think that will help. Okay, it's not very readable, but there it is.
Man, why is Domi so mad, bro? Domi, calm down, dude. What Garfried enjoys or something? Core Rev tier, yeah. There you go, dude. Core Rev is S tier GvG. Y'all don't know shit, dude. Garfried, I can't wait for the next GvG tournament to come around.
Like 3 core revs, just stacking core revs, core boonstrip revs in there. That's big.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think this makes sense. Would you put a core Mesmer, and didn't buy the expansions? I think it does. I think that makes sense, right? You're playing Mesmer, you have Illusion of Light, but you don't have Chrono, so it didn't buy the expansion.
No, I think if you don't run Chrono, you don't run Mesmer.
You're griefing basically at that point. You have actually picked the wrong character.
Yeah. Yeah. Like I think the classes and didn't buy expansions, you can run them. You're just not gonna run them over other specs. I think the classes and pick run character, you're just not like.
Yep.
I know some people have tried. Well,
they've tried and they failed.
Say this,
they tried and failed.
Berserker is like right on the line there because I think it can be run. I don't think you should, but I think it can be run. Spectre probably has some more viability, but it probably just needs buffs. But I would keep it on in where it is. Druid, same thing as Berserker. Well, no, not sorry, same thing as Spectre. Yeah.
I think this looks good.
Picked wrong. Yeah.
This is how a World vs. World tier list should look. Okay, you should join a squad, and they there's a link to this image, and it says if you're not in S or A, leave. Just leave the squad.
Yeah. Well, honestly, if you're not in S, like A, well, except for Scourge, but yeah. Yeah. I mean, this is what it looked more like before. I don't know.
Well, honestly, yeah, that's true. It is true. Like World vs. I think that. This is a really good example to actually think about this. The World vs. World meta did used to look like this. It was a lot stricter than it is now, right? Which is great. Which is really good.
Here's the thing. I actually think that there are more viable builds in GvG because you're less reliant on playing around. Well, you're not playing around 50 other people, right? So in GvG, like you can make there's more ability to play different builds. So there's more variability in GvG, even though we made it look like more things were balanced in large scale. But I also think because GvG is more competitive, you're usually not going to be playing niche stuff. Excuse me. And so like, you can run, like you could see a guild in 15s play Berserker and get away with it. But if it's in a really competitive GvG, they're not going to do that. And like, I think there's more like variability in GvG than in open field, but I think because it's more competitive, you're not going to run like more off meta and more niche stuff, if that makes sense.
For sure. And that makes a lot of sense, right? When you're dealing with so many people, stuff like scaling ends up getting really weird, right? Like stacking more and more of one thing to go one way. It makes the choices you make way more extreme. You want to kind of commit to one playstyle rather than having a little bit more of a varied playstyle, just because of the nature of the game. And that it really streamlines you going on to stuff. And it is true that if we did like large scale only, it would end up looking very restrictive. But I wanted to kind of say, well, you can generate value on some of these builds. Is it going to be as good as other things? Yeah. But can you generate some value on Soulbeast? Yeah, you can. Do you want to stack up a load of them? No. But can you get some value? For sure. And I think that is actually worth talking about. That it's not like totally useless, in some of these larger scale fights, like these kind of like medium to larger scale fights. It's not worthless. Because I think a lot of players think it's totally useless, but I don't think that's the case, actually. I think you can be you have a surprising degree of flexibility over having a few different things in your composition in larger scale stuff.
I'm pretty sure Renegade was in B tier, right? Not A.
That's correct.
For the large scale.
I believe it was in B tier.
I wouldn't have... I was pretty adamant on that.
Yeah, not an A tier. B tier. Where it belongs.
Same thing.
So Vindicator was the only
thing,
was the only EOD spec who made it to A tier, and we were generous because we did it as a favor to the Rev mains.
I think this is the thing that's a bit deceptive about tier lists, right? Because we're not rating. If we wanted to say this is what you play and this is what you don't, you would have 2 lines, maybe 3 at most, and that's why I said you should only do 3 for this. If you're rating classes based on like how they could be good, then yeah, we could make it way more restrictive if we wanted to, but you know, we're trying to basically say like this is where like, you know, a couple like buffs would push this class up a bit, you know. But yeah, of course we can make it way more restrictive. Like if we're making it hard restrictive, it's probably Firebrand, Scrapper, Herald, Scourge, maybe Mesmer and S tier, and then everything else is basically just non-existent. And yeah, but you know, still.
The point of the tier list, guys, is to kind of display what things actually do something, right? It's not about what do you play, it's about what do you actually do. For example, if you did a PvE tier list and you only listed the builds that people actually played, it wouldn't actually be very representative of how good things are, right? Because people only play certain builds. People never play Scrapper, for example, in PvE, ever. But it's actually really good. People just don't play it. It's the same thing with playing stuff like Holosmith. It's just very underplayed. Heal Scourge is really underplayed as well, right, in PvE. But if you rated it just by play rate, you're going to get bad answers. You're going to get bad information. So with the tier list, we wanted to make it more like this is the power level of this. This is how well it can work, and can you get value out of it? Which I think is actually a much more useful thing.
Someone said there's no point if it's not clear and helpful. I've got news for you, my friend. The reason we're doing a tier list is for content, all right? It's because Teapot is desperate and he has nothing to actually show on stream.
We're editing that out. That is true, though. Okay, I admit it. Hey, I appreciate you coming on, Roy, and helping me create some content because I'm too lazy to on my own. So yeah, thank you very much. And you know, on a completely unrelated topic, you know, I think everyone here really appreciates your years of service for Guild Wars 2, just in general, in fact. So definitely a clap in the chat for Roy, guys.
Please no.
Fucking lad. Roy's a gamer. He's been blasting hard, guys. He's been blasting for years. Guild Wars 2. Just did the hosting for the Raid World Cup as well. All the PvP stuff, all the adminning, meaning so I don't have to do anything. Okay, I don't know how I'm going to live without him. Seriously, dude. Unbelievable.
Well, yeah. Good
Fuck all's getting done, man, without you, dude. It's all going to go to shit.
No, that's not true. I never did anything anyways. Yeah.
But yeah, on that note, that's the end of the tier list. Enjoy. Leave a mean comment. I'm ready for this. I'm scared. I'm scared of the World Buster community.
The last time I was on your stream, I got ripped apart in YouTube comments. Man.
Oh yeah,
I'm not looking forward to this.
It's gonna get big. It's gonna be big here. Oh yeah, it's gonna get spicy.
Yeah. I really should have been completely non-confrontational and just like nodded my head and shit, you know, and been like, "Yep, that's right. Yep." Yeah, I would have been. I should have just kept my head down.
We should just literally randomly put. We should have made a little picture out of them or something. Just like made a random, just randomly place them in different tiers. And she'd be like, "Oh, you know, I'll play this if you like tier. Oh, fun tier, really enjoyable tier. Yeah. You know, like,
everything is viable. Yeah, everything is fun.
Role playing tier. You know, have some fun." I like that, actually. You know, that's big. You know, the thumbnail should be the reverse tier list, so everything we rated highly is like just complete dog shit tier.
Yeah, true.
Who in the chat is big mad?
I'm fuming right now.
If you're fuming in the chat, put Maggies in the chat. Let's see. I want to see who's big mad. Also, guys, if you love Core Rev, also put Maggies in the chat. In fact, every Maggies buffs Core Rev, and it will eventually become S tier.
That's true, actually. S-tier. May 10th. It's getting buffed, for sure. Yep. Garfried will be viable.